Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Russian President Vladimir Putin has addressed the military, telling them they stopped a civil war following the aborted Wagner rebellion. In a 5-minute address to the nation, Russia's president tried to reassert his authority after the astonishing events of the weekend when armed mercenaries marched on Moscow. Russian authorities say the Wagner mercenary group will be disarmed, but will escape prosecution over its short-lived rebellion on Saturday. Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin said it was in response to government plans to take direct control of the mercenary group, and he'd now agreed to leave for Belarus. Earlier, a Russian-registered jet, which is linked to Yevgeny Prigozhin, flew to Belarus from Russia. It's not yet known if he was on board. Hundreds of anti-government protesters have blocked a street and scuffled with police in a demonstration that escalated into violence outside the home of Israeli Justice Minister Yariv Levin. Protesters banged drums, set a tyre ablaze and hung large signs accusing Prime Minister Levin of snatching the country, referring to what they say is the influence the Justice Minister has over Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the judicial overhaul process. Israel's police said that 6 people were detained in the course of the protest. The UN Refugee Agency has warned that an earlier projection that the Sudan conflict would prompt 1 million people to flee across its borders is likely to be surpassed. So far, the conflict between warring military factions that began in mid-April has caused almost 600,000 people to cross into neighbouring countries. The latest wave of violence in Darfur has been driven by militias from Arab nomadic tribes, along with members of the Rapid Support Forces. Zimbabwe's economic woes are back, with triple-digit inflation returning after annual inflation doubled to almost 176% in June. Consumer groups say the average family needs about 1 million Zimbabwe dollars, or $150 for food alone every month, as prices rise almost daily. The Zimbabwean government blames currency speculators for the crash of the Zimbabwe dollar, which has lost more than 90% of its value since January. Britain's former Health Minister Matt Hancock has apologised for each COVID-19 death during the pandemic as he gave evidence to a UK inquiry. Protesters, some who'd lost relatives, comforted each other outside as the former Health Secretary answered questions. Mr. Hancock had been at the centre of the government's fight against the pandemic, routinely appearing on television and radio to tell people to follow the strict rules to contain the virus.
I am profoundly sorry for the impact that had. I'm profoundly sorry for each death that has occurred. And I also understand why, for some, it will be hard to take that apology from me. I understand that. I get it. But it is honest and heartfelt.
2 people have died and over 155,000 have been affected in India's Assam, according to authorities, as floods ravaged the northeastern state and forced people into temporary relief shelters. Some residents in the Bajali district were seen resting under shelters, while others stood in their partially submerged and damaged houses. The Brahmaputra River, one of the world's largest rivers, and its distributaries have burst their banks in Assam, inundating several villages. And Britain's Prince William has visited a community centre in East Belfast in Northern Ireland as part of his campaign to tackle homelessness in the UK. The Prince of Wales was greeted by Belfast's Lord Lieutenant Dame Fianola Mary J. O'Boyle before speaking to representatives inside the centre on the second day of a 2-day tour that began on Monday. The senior royal and his royal foundation have launched Homewards, a 5-year locally led pilot programme in 6 regions that aims to address the root causes of homelessness, including by helping people into employment and training schemes and dealing with the prevention of mental health issues. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel studios in Lagos.